Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Valeria and this is the Off-Road Range. Step by step, spring is gradually coming. Finally, the ground thawed, the snow melted almost everywhere, and new vegetation began to emerge. But more important for me is that the ground has dried out in many places, which means that I can finally find my improvised warehouse, which I made a year ago.
Honestly talking, after 10 months, I do not even remember where this place is. So currently I will try to find it.
A year ago, I bought 2 plastic containers of provisions. I used 1 barrel constantly as a refrigerator. If you want to know how to properly bury a barrel so that there is always a low temperature there, then I talk about it in the video number 29. A place for the barrel should be chosen in the shade. If possible, close to a body of water. The barrel must be additionally covered on top. And if underground in the pit you add ice around the barrel, it is possible to achieve a temperature reduction of up to 10 degrees Celsius on an ongoing basis.
I think that I understand where it is, but I need a shovel. This one.
I still use my barrel to store eggs, cheese and meat, even though it's 40 degrees Celsius outside now. Of course, I store cheese and meat for no longer than 2 days, but it is better than not having these products at all.
No, I don't need a shovel. This hole was made by a rat or a mouse, or a snake, but I think it was mouse.
I buried the second barrel for long-term storage and didn't use it for almost a whole year. So today, you and I will take a look at what is there.
One more hole. So the most interesting thing is inside. You can see these holes from mouse and here as well. This is a sheet.
The thermometer that was lying there showed a temperature of 7 degrees Celsius. And of course, it is dry, making it a great place to store supplies, and I recommend it to all preppers. The main thing is that no one except you knows about this place. I'm showing you the place because nothing else will be stored there anymore.
So it is time for the moment X.
The barrel is perfectly preserved. I think the mice smelled the things that were stored there, so they dug tunnels there.
So it is just a backwards household routine.
However, the barrel itself remained intact. Nothing was damaged or even scratched.
So what do we have here? Some sponges for washing dishes, coffee, tea, clothespins, buckwheat, bulgur, rice and couscous. Here we have some bowls and plates. Of course, I didn't need them until the construction of the house was finished. A pot for cooking over a fire, some toilet paper, some ropes one more time, plastic bags, also some other bags, and also a bunch of gloves I work in. You already know them very well, and also just some bags, and ropes one more time.
I also continued to improve in chopping wood. Now it has become my constant activity. As you can see, now I do it better. And this is an excellent physical activity for all muscle groups. On this warm sunny day, I plan to treat the area from ticks. I turn every video into a story, sharing knowledge with you and hoping to interest you in finding out for yourself. I hope you will thank me by liking, subscribing and sharing with your friends. It's that simple. And in turn, today I invite you to listen to what acaricides are, what insecticides are in general, and why it is important and also interesting to know. Insecticides are the common name for all chemical agents that reduce insect populations. This area of activity arose more than 10,000 years ago, and the first person known to us who recommended the use of insecticides was Aristotle. In ancient times, sulfur, plant powders, tobacco, arsenic and others were used to get rid of insects. Chemical insect protection products began to be used more widely only in the mid-19th century. And in the beginning of the 20th century, the first synthetic insecticides from mineral oils appeared. That is, roughly speaking, from oil. There is a large classification because insecticides are used in various spheres: for fields with cultivated plants, for blood-sucking insects, to repel insects, to attract them into a trap, and so on. They are also used both indoors and outdoors, both on an industrial scale and on skin and clothing, for example, against mosquitoes. Therefore, it is important for us, as ordinary consumers, to know what concentration we use and for what, how dangerous it is for us, and why they need to be stored in a protected place. After all, even a city person constantly encounters insecticides, even if he doesn't know about it. For example, the use of substances in everyday life against cockroaches for food products and against mold that eat clothes. These are also repellents for flies and mosquitoes, and substances for woodlice and centipedes in wet areas, for example, in the toilet and bathroom. And this is all poison. The only question is quantity. Substances that are used in everyday life in agriculture and substances that are used in war, these are all poisons, but they are intended to destroy various living beings in various concentrations. And no matter what the poisons are, no matter what they are made from, there are 4 mechanisms of action on the body, on any organism. These are stimulation of the central nervous system, suppression of the central nervous system, suppression of respiratory function, and suppression of chitin synthesis. Let's talk about each of that mechanisms shortly. So, when the central nervous system is stimulated, we can observe increased motor activity, convulsions, and impaired coordination of movements. Central nervous system depressants are most often organophosphorus compounds, and they are, by the way, widely used for political and military purposes. Such substances cause muscle contraction and paralysis. Substances that suppress respiratory function have very clear consequences. Such substances are often used for inhalation. Substances that suppress chitin synthesis prevent the larva from turning into an insect. Chitin is the shell, the skin of an insect, for example, the wings of a cockroach. If they are not formed, the insect dies. In addition, the penetration of poison occurs in several ways. One of them, as I said earlier, is inhalation of aerosol. Another method is fumigation, that is the use of gas or smoke. One more way is to apply granules or powders, for example, into the soil or into sewer pipes or into nooks and crannies in the kitchen. In addition, expectorant lozenges in teas are also a kind of poison, since their action is based on a slight spasm of the lungs, which leads to a better expectoration of sputum. This is why dosage is so important, and this applies to any substance. And it is best to apply this rule to all of life, because balance and dosage are important in everywhere. Tick killers are called acaricides, and they are also poison. Any poison is dangerous to humans. Therefore, when using insecticides, personal protection equipment must be used. As you see, I use a special mask with a protection class and glasses so that poison particles do not irritate the mucous membrane of the eye. Also, my entire body is as closed as possible because poisons also penetrate through the skin. Of course, I still received some degree of poisoning, but at the moment, due to the specifics of the work and limited funds, I cannot avoid this. For example, when cutting down trees, I constantly inhale gasoline and all fumes, and burn the mucous membranes of my nose and throat and destroy my lungs. Therefore, after work, I drink about a liter of milk. And although many people now refuse dairy products, associating this with intolerance by the body, milk binds toxins and removes poisons from the body. I have never had any issues with drinking milk, and in general, I do not demonize any product. There are no healthy or harmful foods. Everything needs balance, and you need to understand how and what affects your body. But let's get back to poisons. How to choose the insecticide you need? Firstly, this is a classification. Who you want to get rid of. Google will immediately give you a dozen names of substances. But it is important to pay attention not to the name, but to the active substance. Regardless of the name, different drugs may have the same chemical formula, so it is better to know the composition and how it works. There may be 10 substances on the market, but all of them will either excite the central nervous system or suppress the central nervous system, as it was in my case when choosing a substance from ticks. It is also important to know the hazard category. Some substances are prohibited in a number of countries, such as those that cause severe damage to the environment, destroy the soil, or are poisonous to humans, birds, bees, fish, and domestic animals. And if the substance is not banned in your country, you may still want to avoid using it. Another points are the duration of action and conditions of action. The effectiveness of the product depends on the temperature, on the presence of moisture, the presence of light, the nutrients in plants, and so on. For example, in my case, treating the area for ticks will only work if the weather is dry for the next 3 days. Otherwise, with rain, water will wash away all the substance into the soil. And if the temperature rises, then the effect of my particular substance will only become stronger. then the effect of protection against ticks can last up to 8 weeks. The habituation of the insect is also important. For example, this year I am treating the soil with one substance, but next year I may choose a different active substance, since the insects will get used to it, and a high concentration of the substance will be required to kill them. Please note that I will choose not a different name, but a different substance with a different mechanism of action. Another thing that matters is where you apply the substance, outdoor or indoor. Indoor, for example, in a house or apartments, there are much stricter rules for using and cleaning the substance, because after treating the surfaces in the house, you will touch them, put food on them, carry things and clothes after they have been on the treated surfaces. And of course, if you processed it yourself, then first you must wash yourself completely, and then only do other things, and even more so, eat food. Otherwise, this food may be your last. If you have children, then processing should be even more careful, and storage should be very reliable. Unfortunately, there are many cases where a child accidentally drank poisonous substances. And of course, I think the impact on the environment is also very important. Insecticides interact with almost all plants, insects, microflora, birds, amphibians, and animals. During the process of integration and promotion, chemicals enter water bodies and accumulate in animals and birds, as birds and animals feed on insects. In order to minimize the impact on insectivores, it is advisable to carry out treatment during a period when they are still weakly active and minimally hunt insects. Pesticides are used to destroy or stop the development of insects, mites, rodents, bacteria, viruses, fungal spores, and harmful vegetation. They are used for anything that harms crop and livestock production. They are also used to combat parasitic organisms and carriers of dangerous human diseases. Of course, they also affect beneficial substances, insects, and animals. Pesticides have a destructive effect on the soil. The soil is so important, valuable, and complex information that despite the fact that I have just a small piece of land, I have preserved and will preserve all the fertile soil, because it is formed over hundreds of years and it is scarce, while humanity is mercilessly destroying it for short-term profit. Pesticides also kill pollinators, such as bees, bumblebees, and butterflies. But a person cannot live without bees. Bees pollinate more than 80% of all plants. They create living conditions on the planet. But I will talk about this in detail when the time comes for my hives. Oh my god! Pesticides also accumulate in water, in reservoirs, and in the inhabitants. Toxins are concentrated in fish, plankton, and algae, and they die. And the world ocean and its inhabitants produce more than 50% of all oxygen on the planet. What matters is not how much insecticides you or I use, but how much farmers and governments use internationally. Because this is a very profitable chemical industry. And despite the fact that there are much safer and more effective ways to control insects, the best of this world do not benefit from their development. As for me, the substance that I use doesn't move in the soil layers due to decay, and its period of complete disintegration when ingested is from 6 to 8 weeks if the requirement of use are followed. Thanks to my varied activities, I gain knowledge and experience from completely different areas of life. This greatly broadens my horizons. This gives understanding of what is happening in the world. But even if your activity is different, in my opinion, it is very important and interesting to gain new knowledge, to learn news, especially disputes and opinions about the use of different substances, about mining, about processing products, about product waste, and so on. All this helps us understand where we are going and what influences us. This helps define our values and make the right choices. I turn each video into a short story with new knowledge that I collect and share with you. I hope they are available to you, and you will support me by subscribing, liking, or donating. It was Valeria, the Off-Road Range. I wish you all the best and see you soon.